The Great Hall on Zarian Prime was bigger than most cities. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive space, their voices creating a buzz that echoed off the crystal walls. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living metal, and a few seemed to be pure energy floating in containment suits. They had all come here for one reason, to talk about the thing that was eating their galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the back row with his small team. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes. Next to him sat Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter, a woman with short brown hair who always carried a datapad. Dr. Marcus Webb, their science officer, was a thin man with thick glasses who kept checking his instruments. The humans had been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years now. That might sound like a long time, but most of the aliens in this room had been alive for thousands of years. Their civilizations were older than human history. To them, humans were just babies playing with toys. At the center of the hall, a crystal being stood up. His name was Veltar, and he was the High Chancellor of the Zephyrian Empire. His body was clear like glass, but light moved through him in patterns that hurt to look at. When he spoke, his voice came through translation machines that turned his crystal sounds into words everyone could understand. The Void Swarm has eaten 17 star systems in the past month, Veltar announced. His voice was cold and angry. Our greatest weapons cannot stop it. Our fastest ships cannot escape it. We must act now, or we will all die. A massive creature stood up from the Korthix section. War Prime Vexmore was 12 feet tall and covered in thick armor that looked like it was made from black metal. His species had been warriors for millions of years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and never lost a war. But now, even he looked afraid. The swarm destroyed 3 of our fortress worlds last week, Vexmore growled. His voice was so deep it made the floor shake. We threw everything at it. Plasma cannons that could crack planets. Gravity bombs that could crush stars. Nothing worked. The thing just ate our weapons and got stronger. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's top alien expert, raised her hand. She was a small woman with dark hair and kind eyes. She had studied alien life for 30 years and knew more about other species than most humans. But when she tried to speak, the aliens ignored her. The ethereal consensus has also failed, said a voice that sounded like singing. The speaker was a being of pure light that floated above the crowd. We tried to attack the swarm with our mind. Powers. We can usually control the thoughts of any living thing. But this swarm has no mind we can touch. It thinks in ways we cannot understand. Jake watched as more species told their stories. The Helix Confederation had tried to use their reality-changing technology. The Quantum Collective had sent their best computer minds. The Bioshapers had created new life forms designed to fight the swarm. All of them had failed. We need a new plan, Veltar said. The Helix Confederation will build a new weapon, something that can erase the swarm from existence itself. We will give them all our resources and knowledge. Dr. Rodriguez stood up again. What about studying the swarm first? Maybe if we understand how it works, we can find the weakness. The crystal being's light flashed with anger. Humans, he said with disgust. You have been in space for less than 100 years. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. Your minds are simple. Why should we waste time listening to children when the galaxy is dying? A creature that looked like a living tree swayed as it spoke. The humans cannot even travel faster than light without our help. Their computers are so basic, they use ones and zeros. How can they understand an enemy that exists in 17 dimensions? Lisa Carter's hand moved to her weapon, but Jake touched her arm gently. He had heard this before. Every time humans tried to help, the aliens treated them like stupid pets. But Jake had learned something in his 40 years of military service. Sometimes the best way to win was to let your enemy think you were weak. "The swarm is spreading faster now," reported a snake-like being from the Serpent Worlds. "It consumed the Altair system yesterday. At this rate, it will reach the core worlds in 6 months." The hall erupted in panicked voices. Species that had lived for millions of years were facing extinction. Their great technologies and ancient wisdom meant nothing against this enemy. Veltar raised his crystal arms for silence. "It is decided. The Helix Confederation will build the reality weapon. All other species will provide support. The humans will coordinate refugee evacuation. That is all they are good for." As the meeting ended, Jake and his team walked out quietly. Around them, the greatest minds in the galaxy argued about complex plans and impossible technologies. But Jake was thinking about something else. He remembered old stories from Earth's history. Sometimes the biggest armies lost to smaller ones. Sometimes the smartest generals were beaten by simple soldiers who did unexpected things. "Captain," Lisa whispered as they walked to their ship, "they're making a mistake. The swarm isn't just eating matter. It's learning from every species it destroys. The more complex the prey, the smarter it gets." Jake nodded. He had read the same reports. While the aliens focused on building bigger weapons, they were actually feeding their enemy. The swarm was getting stronger with each defeat, absorbing the knowledge and abilities of every civilization it consumed. "What do we do?" asked Marcus. Jake looked back at the great hall where the aliens were still arguing. "We do what humans do best. We adapt. We watch. We learn. And when the time comes, we do what nobody expects." As they reached their ship, Jake received a message from Earth Command. The human colonies on the galaxy's edge were reporting something strange. The swarm was moving around them, not attacking them directly. It was like the creature didn't think humans were worth eating. Jake smiled grimly. Being underestimated had always been humanity's secret weapon. Let the aliens think humans were too primitive to matter. Soon they would learn that sometimes the best solution was the one nobody saw coming. The galaxy was burning, but Jake Morrison had a plan. It was time to show the universe what humans could really do. 3 months had passed since the meeting on Zerion Prime. The galaxy was dying faster than anyone had expected. From the bridge of the UHS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the latest reports flow across his screens. Each one brought worse news. The Helix Confederation's reality weapon had exploded during testing. Instead of destroying the Void Swarm, it had made the creature stronger. The weapon had opened cracks in space itself, and the swarm had eaten the energy that poured through. Now it was twice as big as before. "Captain, we're getting another emergency signal," said Chief Engineer Danny Brooks. He was a stocky man with grease-stained hands who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "The Korthic Empire just lost their capital world. Thexmore and his entire war fleet are gone." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Korthic were the galaxy's greatest warriors. They had ships that could destroy moons and soldiers who had never known defeat. If they were gone, what hope did anyone else have? Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter looked up from her communication station. Her face was pale but determined. "Sir, we're getting similar reports from across the galaxy. The Zephyri and Crystal Cities are going dark. The Quantum Collective's computer worlds have stopped responding. The Bioshapers' living planets are dying." Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his glasses as he studied the data. The swarm isn't just eating randomly anymore. It's targeting the most advanced civilizations first. Each species it consumes makes it smarter and stronger. On the main screen, a holographic map showed the galaxy as it was now. Red areas marked where the swarm had been. They covered almost half of all known space. The creature was spreading like a disease, and nothing could stop it. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "At current speed, it will reach Earth in 4 months," Marcus replied quietly. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Humanity's home world, with its billions of people, would be consumed just like all the others. Their families, their friends, their entire history would become part of the swarm's growing intelligence. A new voice came over the communication system. It was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, calling from the human research station near the swarm's edge. "Captain Morrison, I have something you need to see." Elena's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but excited. Behind her, Jake could see other human scientists working at computers and examining alien artifacts they had rescued from destroyed worlds. "We've been studying the swarm's behavior for months," Elena explained. "Every time it attacks a planet, it doesn't just eat the matter. It absorbs the knowledge, the culture, the technology. It's becoming a combination of every species it has consumed." "We already knew that," Lisa said. "Yes, but there's more. The swarm is learning each species' weaknesses along with their strengths. It knows how the Korthic think because it ate their minds. It understands Zephyrian technology because it absorbed their cities. But here's the interesting part." Elena pulled up a chart showing the swarm's attack patterns. "It's been avoiding human colonies. Not completely, but it's steering around them. Out of 50 human settlements in its path, it's only attacked 3. And those 3 were joint colonies with other species." Commander Tony Bishop, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward. He was a young man with sharp eyes who had graduated top of his class at the academy. "You're saying it doesn't want to eat us?" "I'm saying it doesn't think we're worth eating," Elena corrected. "Look at the data. Every time human ships encounter the swarm, it barely reacts. We're like insects to it. Too simple and primitive to bother with." Jake felt a strange mix of insult and hope. Being ignored by a galaxy-eating monster was not exactly flattering, but it might be their only chance. "There's something else," Elena continued. "We've been rescuing survivors from destroyed worlds. The swarm has consumed the memories and knowledge of hundreds of species, but it's also inherited their thinking patterns. It's becoming predictable." "How so?" Jake asked. "Advanced civilizations think in complex ways. They use sophisticated strategies and rely on their technology. The swarm has absorbed all of that. It expects its enemies to fight with energy weapons, quantum computers, and reality-altering devices. But humans don't have any of that." Danny Brooks laughed grimly. "So we're too stupid to fight it properly?" "No," Elena said with a smile. "We're too simple for it to understand. While every other species has been trying to out-tech the swarm, we've been learning how it behaves. And I think we might have found a way to beat it." The communication was interrupted by an alarm. Lisa quickly checked her instruments. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Altair system. The swarm is attacking the evacuation ships." Jake didn't hesitate. "Set course for Altair." "Maximum speed. Sir, the swarm is there." "Our orders are to avoid direct contact," Tony reminded him. "Our orders are to save lives," Jake replied firmly. "Besides, if Elena is right, the swarm won't pay much attention to us." As the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake thought about what Elena had said. The swarm was incredibly intelligent, but it was also becoming trapped by that intelligence. It had learned to think like every advanced species in the galaxy, which meant it had also learned their limitations. When they arrived at Altair, the scene was chaos. The swarm had surrounded 3 evacuation ships, carrying refugees from a dozen different species. The creature looked like a living shadow that stretched across space, with tentacles of dark energy reaching toward the helpless vessels. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, staring at the swarm through the sensors. "And terrifying." The swarm was indeed beautiful in its alien way. It moved like liquid darkness, shifting and flowing as it consumed the metal and energy of the ships it touched. But Jake saw something else in its movements. They were too perfect, too calculated. The swarm was fighting like every other advanced species would fight. "Danny, power down all our advanced systems," Jake ordered. "Switch to backup power and basic navigation only." "Sir, that will leave us nearly defenseless," Tony protested. "That's the point. Lisa, open a channel to the evacuation ships. Tell them to follow our lead." Jake guided the Defiance toward the swarm, using only the ship's most basic systems. No quantum computers, no energy shields, no sophisticated weapons. Just simple human engineering and basic physics. The swarm's reaction was immediate and telling. Its tentacles, which had been moving to destroy the evacuation ships, slowed and hesitated. The creature seemed confused by the human ship's simple approach. "It doesn't know what to do with us." Elena's voice came over the communication system. She was watching from the research station. "We're not following any pattern it understands." Jake smiled grimly. "Then let's give it something really confusing to think about." He ordered the ship to broadcast on every frequency at once. Not tactical communications or sophisticated data, but human music, old movies, and random conversations from Earth. The swarm's movements became even more erratic as it tried to process the chaotic flow of human culture. While the swarm was distracted, the 3 evacuation ships escaped. Jake had saved over 10,000 lives, using nothing but humanity's most basic technology and most confusing cultural exports, as they flew away from Altair. Jake realized something important. The swarm wasn't invincible. It was just very, very smart. And sometimes, being too smart was a weakness that simple thinking could exploit. The galaxy was still burning, but now Jake had hope. Humanity might be the last option, the aliens would. Choose, but they might also be the only option that could actually work. The refugee ship Sanctuary was the size of a small moon. It had been built by combining the technology of a dozen different species, all working together to create a safe place for the survivors of the Void Swarm's attacks. Inside it's massive. Halls, millions of beings from hundreds of worlds tried to rebuild their lives. Admiral Patricia Hayes walked through the corridors, her simple human uniform standing out among the colorful clothing and strange shapes of the aliens around her. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much destruction. But her voice was still strong when she spoke. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was being held in the ship's main conference room. The moon was darker than space itself. 3/4 of the galaxy was now under the swarm's control. Ancient civilizations that had existed for millions of years were gone forever. Veltar, the crystal being who had dismissed humanity months ago, was now just a dim shadow of his former self. His light flickered weakly as he spoke. "The Helix Confederation is destroyed. The Quantum Collective has fallen silent. The Bioshapers' living worlds are dead. We have perhaps 2 months before the swarm reaches the core systems. War Prime." Dexmore was gone, consumed along with his entire species. In his place sat a smaller Korthek named Drenver, one of the few survivors of their warrior race. "We have only 30 ships left," he said in a voice full of pain. "Once we commanded fleets of thousands." The ethereal consensus representative, a being of pure light named Luxura, floated sadly above the table. "We tried to contact the other dimensional beings for help. They have closed their borders. They say our universe is doomed." Admiral Hayes listened to the reports with growing determination. Each story of failure and loss only made her more certain that humanity's time had come. She had spent the last 3 months studying every piece of data they had collected about the swarm. The answer was there, hidden in plain sight. "The swarm has a weakness," she announced, standing up from her chair. The room fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at her with expressions ranging from hope to disbelief. Kolveth, a surviving Zephyrian, flickered with annoyance. Impossible. Our greatest scientists have studied the entity for months. It adapts to every weapon, every strategy, every form of attack we can imagine. Every advanced attack, Admiral Hayes corrected. Every sophisticated strategy, every complex weapon. But it struggles with simplicity. She activated a holographic display that showed the rescue operations human ships had been conducting. For the past 4 months, human vessels have been operating in swarm territory. We've saved over 2 million refugees from destroyed worlds. The swarm has encountered our ships hundreds of times. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now serving as the human fleet's chief science officer, joined the presentation. The swarm's behavior toward human ships is completely different from how it treats other species. It's slow to react, uncertain in its movements, almost like it's confused. Because human technology is primitive, Kolveth interrupted. Your weapons are basic kinetic projectiles. Your computers use simple binary code. Your ships move using chemical rockets. There is nothing for the swarm to learn from. Exactly. Admiral Hayes said with a smile. The swarm learns by consuming and integrating complexity. But human technology is too simple for it to effectively absorb and improve upon. We're like a meal it can't digest. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up more data. The swarm has consumed the knowledge of species with million-year-old civilizations. It knows how to counter quantum weapons, reality manipulation, and psionic attacks. But it has never encountered an enemy that fights with bullets and explosives. Commander Nathan Price, captain of the human ship Resilience, provided tactical analysis. We've been tracking the swarm's evolution patterns. Each time it encounters advanced technology, it incorporates those capabilities. But it also inherits the limitations and dependencies of those systems. What are you saying? Asked Drenver. The swarm is becoming a victim of its own sophistication, Admiral Hayes explained. It's so advanced now that it can't deal with basic problems. It's like a supercomputer trying to swat a fly. The computer is much smarter, but the fly is too simple for it to predict. She activated another display showing the swarm's recent attacks. Look at how it moves now, compared to when it first appeared. It's become predictable. It uses the same advanced tactics that every species it consumed would use. But humans don't think like other species. The room was quiet as the aliens absorbed this information. Finally, Luxara spoke in her singing voice. You believe you can defeat the swarm because you are primitive? We believe we can defeat the swarm because we think differently, Admiral Hayes replied. Every species in this room has tried to out-tech the swarm. You've built bigger weapons, more complex strategies, more sophisticated defenses. But the swarm just absorbs all of that and becomes stronger. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. Human. History is full of examples where simple solutions beat complex ones. David defeated Goliath with a slingshot. Guerrilla fighters have beaten professional armies. Sometimes the best answer is the one nobody expects. What exactly are you proposing? Kolveth asked. Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. We're proposing that instead of trying to out-evolve the swarm, we force it to de-evolve. We overwhelm it with deliberately primitive but effective tactics. We fight it with weapons so simple that it can't adapt to them. Commander Price activated a tactical display. The swarm expects its enemies to coordinate attacks using quantum communications. We'll use radio signals it can't intercept. It expects energy weapons, so we'll use kinetic projectiles. It expects logical battle plans, so we'll use organized chaos. It expects us to fight like every other advanced species, Admiral Hayes continued. But we're going to fight like humans. Unpredictable, adaptable, and too stubborn to know when we're beaten. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. The idea was so simple, it seemed impossible. How could a species that had been dismissed as primitive succeed where their advanced civilizations had failed? Dr. Elena Rodriguez pulled up one final piece of data. There's something else. The swarm's growth has been slowing down. Not because it's running out of things to eat, but because it's becoming too complex to manage efficiently. Every species it absorbs makes it harder for the collective intelligence to make decisions. It's like a company that's grown too big, Commander Price explained. The more layers of management you add, the slower everything becomes. The swarm is choking on its own success. Admiral Hayes looked around the room at the faces of the galaxy's survivors. The plan is elegant in its simplicity. We're going to give the swarm something it's never encountered before. Pure, chaotic, unpredictable human warfare. No sophisticated tactics, no advanced technology, just 300 human ships doing what humans do best. Which is? Drenner asked. Surviving against impossible odds by refusing to follow the rules. The room erupted in discussion. Some aliens were skeptical, others were desperate enough to try anything. But Admiral Hayes had already made her decision. Humanity had been the galaxy's last option for too long. It was time to show the universe what humans could really do. As the meeting continued, she looked out through the ship's windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the void swarm was consuming world after world, growing stronger with each victory. But it had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. The galaxy had written off humans as too primitive to matter. Soon, they would learn that sometimes primitive was exactly what the situation required. The human fleet spread across 3 star systems, each ship moving independently like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. Captain Kevin Turner stood on the bridge of the UHS Vanguard, watching his tactical display with grim satisfaction. His ship had been deliberately downgraded with weapons that other species hadn't used in centuries. Status report. Turner called out to his crew. All systems operational, sir, replied Lieutenant Amy Chun, his tactical officer. Kinetic cannons, loaded with simple steel projectiles. Nuclear warheads armed with basic fusion triggers. No quantum computers, no energy shields, no sophisticated targeting systems. Turner nodded. It felt strange to go into battle with such primitive weapons, but that was exactly the point. The Void Swarm had learned to counter every advanced technology. In the galaxy, it had never encountered an enemy that fought with bullets and bombs. Remember, Turner broadcast to the human fleet, we're not trying to match the swarm's power. We're trying to confuse it. Every shot you fire should be different. From the last, change your tactics constantly. Be unpredictable. The first engagement was about to begin in the Helix sector, where the swarm had been dormant for weeks. The creature had consumed the entire Confederation and was now digesting their reality-altering technology. It stretched across 3 planets, like a living shadow, pulsing with absorbed energy. All ships, begin the attack, Turner ordered. The human fleet descended on the swarm from every direction. But instead of the coordinated assault that advanced species would use, each ship followed its own plan. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the UHS Defiant came in high, firing old-fashioned missiles. Captain Robert Lee of the UHS Courage attacked from below, using magnetic railguns. Captain Jennifer Walsh of the UHS Freedom approached from the side, launching nuclear torpedoes. The swarm's reaction was immediate and telling. Its defensive systems, designed to counter quantum weapons and energy attacks, were completely useless against simple kinetic projectiles. The creature's shields flickered and failed as steel bullets punched through barriers that could have stopped planet-killing energy beams. It's working, Amy Chun reported with excitement. The swarm can't adapt to our weapons fast enough. Its prediction algorithms are designed for sophisticated attacks, not basic physics. Turner watched as the swarm writhed in confusion. The creature was trying to counter their assault, using the advanced tactics it had learned from consumed civilizations. But human weapons were too simple for those tactics to work against. "Second wave. Commence your attack," Turner ordered. The next group of ships brought even more chaos. Captain David Foster's ship broadcast heavy metal music while firing explosive shells. Captain Lisa Rodriguez used her ship's communication array to transmit Earth's most confusing television shows while launching rocket-propelled grenades. Captain Michael Stone played children's nursery rhymes while shooting armor-piercing rounds. The psychological warfare was having an unexpected effect. The swarm had absorbed the mental patterns of dozens of species, creating a collective consciousness that thought in predictable ways. But it had never encountered the chaotic, contradictory nature of human thought. "All frequencies are being flooded with human transmissions," reported Communications Officer Peter Kim. "Music, literature, comedy shows, sports broadcasts, political arguments, cooking shows. Everything that makes human culture completely insane." The swarm's movements became erratic as it tried to process the flood of human information. It was accustomed to the logical communication patterns of advanced species. But human culture was too random, too emotional, too fundamentally irrational for its evolved intelligence to categorize. Commander Beth Palmer, tactical officer aboard the UHS Horizon, watched in amazement as their primitive missiles bypassed the swarm's defenses entirely. "It's like the creature is having a breakdown," she reported. "It keeps trying to use quantum prediction to figure out what we'll do next, but we don't even know what we'll do next." The third phase of the attack involved pure human unpredictability. Captain James Parker decided to ram his ship into the swarm while playing opera music. Captain Angela Martinez launched every weapon she had while broadcasting a cooking show about making pancakes. Captain Thomas Scott used his ship's tractor beam to throw asteroids while transmitting Earth's funniest home videos. The swarm's response was chaos. Its adapted intelligence tried to counter each attack, but the sheer randomness of human tactics overwhelmed its processing systems. It would adapt to one approach only to be blindsided by a completely different strategy from the next ship. "The entity is experiencing cascade failures," reported Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the command ship. "Every adaptation, it makes conflicts with the previous ones. It's trying to be a warrior species, a technology species, and a psionic species all at once." The turning point came when the swarm attempted to absorb a human ship to understand their tactics. Captain Greg Collins, knowing his vessel was doomed, made a decision that epitomized human unpredictability. Instead of fighting or fleeing, he opened all communication channels. "This is Captain Collins of the UHS Persistence," he broadcast calmly. "I want to share my grandmother's recipe for chocolate chip cookies. You need 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of butter, and—" While describing the recipe in detail, Collins played harmonica music through the ship's speakers. At the same time, he launched every escape pod in random directions, each one broadcasting a different piece of human culture. One pod transmitted Shakespeare's plays. Another played jazz music. A third broadcast nature documentaries about Earth's animals. The swarm's reaction was immediate and catastrophic. Faced with the ultimate expression of human illogic, its collective consciousness experienced what could only be described as a mental breakdown. The creature began to shudder and writhe as conflicting adaptations tore through its structure. "It's collapsing," Elena reported with amazement. "The swarm is literally falling apart. Its absorbed technologies are turning against each other." Turner watched as the massive entity began to dissolve. The swarm had survived by absorbing and adapting to complexity, but it couldn't adapt to pure human chaos. Every piece of advanced technology it had consumed was now fighting against every other. "Peace. All ships continue the attack," Turner ordered. "Don't let up until it's completely destroyed." The human fleet pressed their advantage, each ship continuing its own unique form of warfare. Some captains sang songs while firing weapons. Others told jokes over the radio while launching missiles. A few played games while shooting at the dissolving swarm dot as the creature finally collapsed into quantum foam. The human fleet found themselves surrounded by the ships of other species. The surviving aliens had been watching the battle, unable to believe what they were seeing. "How did you do it?" came a transmission from Kolveth, the Zephyrian survivor. "We had the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. You defeated it with bullets and bombs." Turner smiled as he looked at his primitive weapons display. "We didn't defeat it with bullets and bombs. We defeated it with chaos. The swarm was too smart. For its own good. It expected us to fight like every other species it had consumed. But we fought like humans. And how do humans fight?" asked Drenver, the Corphic warrior. "Like we're too stupid to know when we're beaten," Turner replied. "And sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs." As the human fleet regrouped, reports came in from across the galaxy. The main swarm was weakening. Its collective intelligence was breaking down as the chaos from this battle spread through its entire network. For the first time since the invasion began, the creature was retreating. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best weapon against an incomprehensible enemy was an equally incomprehensible response. And nobody was more incomprehensible than humans who refused to follow the rules. The Nexus system had once been home to the galaxy's most advanced research station. Now it was the heart of a monster. The Void Swarm had gathered its entire mass here, creating a creature so vast it covered 3 planets. The entity pulsed with the absorbed power of 1,000 civilizations, its dark tendrils reaching across space itself. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the UHS Liberation, surrounded by officers from every surviving species in the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on her. The humans who had once been dismissed as the last option were now leading the galaxy's final battle. "Final fleet count," she called out. 300 human ships ready for combat," reported Commander Lisa Carter. 200 alien vessels. Providing support. This is everything we have left." Hayes looked at the massive holographic display showing the swarm's final form. It was beautiful and terrifying, a living representation of every advanced technology the galaxy had ever created. But she could see the cracks in its structure, the places where different absorbed technologies fought against each other. "The creature has evolved beyond its original form," Dr. Elena Rodriguez explained to the assembled fleet commanders. "It's incorporated the knowledge of every species it has consumed. But it's also inherited all their limitations and dependencies." Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as Hayes' tactical advisor, smiled grimly. "It's like a computer that's running too many programs. The more complex it gets, the more likely it is to crash." The plan for the final battle was characteristically human in its beautiful simplicity. Instead of a coordinated assault, they would create controlled chaos. Every human ship would follow different tactics, use different weapons, and operate on different frequencies. There would be no unified command structure, no predictable battle plan. "Remember," Hayes broadcast to the fleet, "the swarm expects us to fight like every other species it has consumed. It's prepared for coordinated attacks, tactical brilliance, and technological superiority. But it's not prepared for 300 human captains all doing whatever they think will work." Captain Jennifer Walsh of the UHS Defiant was the first to begin her attack run. Her plan was simple and insane: ram the swarm while broadcasting Earth's greatest rock concerts. Her ship's cargo hold was filled with compressed hydrogen that would explode on impact. "This is for everyone the swarm has eaten," Walsh announced over the radio as she played music at maximum volume. Her ship struck the creature's outer edge, creating a massive explosion that lit up the system. The swarm's reaction was immediate. Confusion. It tried to adapt to the attack, but there was nothing sophisticated enough to adapt to. Walsh had simply flown her ship into the creature while playing loud music. The swarm's quantum prediction algorithms couldn't process such basic tactics. Captain Paul Stevens followed with his own unique approach. He launched every nuclear weapon his ship carried, but instead of targeting vital areas, he set them to detonate in random patterns. While the missiles flew, he broadcast his daughter's piano recital from her school concert. "Take that, you overgrown space octopus," Stevens called out as his weapons exploded in a chaotic light show. The swarm writhed as it tried to counter the nuclear attack using the advanced defenses it had learned from consumed civilizations. But the random detonation pattern made no tactical sense. There was no strategy to counter, no pattern to predict. Captain Amy Foster took a different approach entirely. She flew her ship in circles around the swarm while broadcasting Earth's most popular cooking shows. At the same time, she fired every weapon she had in no particular order, creating a constant barrage of uncoordinated destruction. "Today, we're making spaghetti and meatballs," the cooking show host cheerfully explained, while Foster's missiles exploded against the creature's surface. "First, you'll need 2 pounds of ground beef and some fresh tomatoes." The combination of random weapons fire and cooking instructions seemed to break something in the swarm's collective mind. Its movements became jerky and uncontrolled as it tried to process the contradictory information. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring the swarm's quantum signatures from the command ship, reported with growing excitement. "The entity is experiencing cascade failures across its entire network. Every adaptation it makes is conflicting with previous ones. It's literally thinking itself to death." The battle intensified as more human ships joined the chaos. Captain Brian Murphy decided to play every Earth song ever recorded while firing weapons backwards. Captain Sandra Williams broadcast her grandmother's knitting instructions while launching missiles that spelled out "hello" in the swarm's face. Captain Tony Martinez transmitted Earth's funniest comedy shows while using his ship's tractor beam to throw space debris. The swarm's response grew increasingly frantic. It had absorbed the tactical knowledge of the galaxy's greatest military minds, but none of them had ever prepared for an enemy that fought while broadcasting cooking shows and comedy routines. The creature's advanced intelligence was choking on human irrationality. "All ships press the attack," Admiral Hayes ordered. "Don't give it time to adapt." The alien ships supporting the humans watched in amazement as the battle unfolded. They had expected a desperate last stand, not this carnival of controlled madness. But they could see that it was working. The swarm was falling apart. It's absorbed. Technologies turning against each other. Kolveth, the surviving Zephyrian, transmitted from his crystal ship. "This is impossible. You are defeating the most advanced entity in the galaxy with pure chaos." "Welcome to humanity," Hayes replied, with a grin. "We've been confusing ourselves for thousands of years. Now it's someone else's turn." The climax came when Captain Greg Collins made his final sacrifice. His ship was damaged and couldn't escape, so he made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. He opened all communication channels and began the most confusing broadcast ever transmitted. "This is Captain Collins of the UHS Persistence," he announced calmly while his ship flew directly into the swarm's core. "I'd like to share my grandmother's cookie recipe, my thoughts on the meaning of life, the lyrics to my favorite song, the plot of every movie I've ever seen, and my opinion on why cats are better than dogs." While Collins talked, he played harmonica music, launched every escape pod in random directions, and set his ship to broadcast every piece of human culture in its database. The pods scattered across space, each one transmitting something different. One played children's lullabies. Another broadcast sports commentaries. A third transmitted nature documentaries about penguins. The effect on the swarm was catastrophic. Faced with the ultimate expression of human chaos, its collective consciousness finally broke. The creature had evolved to absorb and integrate complexity, but it couldn't integrate pure randomness. Every system it had absorbed began fighting every other system. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez shouted over the communication chaos. "The swarm is collapsing on itself. Its quantum matrix is destabilizing." Admiral Hayes watched as the massive entity began to tear apart. Millions of years of absorbed civilizations were turning against each other in a cascade of technological warfare. The swarm had become too complex to survive its own intelligence. "All ships maintain the attack," Hayes ordered. "Keep broadcasting everything you've got." The human fleet continued their beautiful chaos. Ships played music while firing weapons. Captains told jokes while launching missiles. The entire battle became a celebration of everything that made humanity. Unpredictable and impossible to understand as the swarm finally dissolved into quantum foam. Its death scream echoed across the galaxy. The creature that had consumed worlds and civilizations was destroyed not by superior technology, but by pure human randomness. The silence that followed was broken by cheers from ships across the fleet. They had done the impossible. The galaxies. Most primitive species had defeated its greatest threat, using nothing but chaos and stubbornness. "This is Admiral Hayes to all ships," she broadcast. "The void swarm is destroyed. The galaxy is free." The celebration lasted for hours. Ships from every surviving species joined in, their crews finally understanding what humans had always known. Sometimes the best solution was the one nobody expected. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council was rebuilt with humanity at its center. The species that had once dismissed humans as too primitive now looked to them as protectors and leaders. Earth became the new capital of galactic civilization. Admiral Hayes, now appointed as the first human supreme commander of galactic defense, stood before the rebuilt council chambers. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the hall, but this time they listened respectfully when humans spoke. The galaxy learned an important lesson, Hayes told the assembly. Sometimes the last option isn't the worst option. Sometimes it's the one nobody saw coming. The human fleet spread across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as guardians. They carried with them the lesson of the void swarm, that complexity wasn't always strength, that intelligence could become a weakness, and that sometimes the best. Defense against an impossible threat was an equally impossible response. Years later, when new dangers emerged from the dark spaces between galaxies, the universe knew who to call. Not the species with the most advanced technology or the oldest civilizations, but the humans who had saved everyone by refusing